Hey everybody, how we doing? Still awake? Okay, good. I just want to start by saying I'm such a huge fan of so many of these projects, and I've admired them for a really long time. So it's really cool just to hear from the projects like Spent and Oaktown stories, and hear the people talk about the process behind them. So I'm just really excited to be a part of it all. As Katie said, I'm with Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting. CIR is one of the nation's oldest nonprofit investigative journalism organizations. We were founded in 1977 in Oakland, so another Oakland tie here. We have a radio show and a podcast called Reveal, which you should all subscribe to. Shameless plug right at the beginning. And we do a lot of projects that really take the investigative reporting that we do. We believe in not just telling those stories, but taking the stories to the people that are most affected by them and empowering people with the information that we work so hard to uncover. So I'm here to talk about one of those projects that we did, as Katie mentioned, Eyes on Oakland, that we did last year with some artists in Oakland, California. With all of the coverage and the revelations that around surveillance technology, partly inspired by Edward Snowden and the NSA and all the reporting that came out as a result of those leaks, it's hard for journalists sometimes to really connect those themes of surveillance and those big stories, these big programs, to everyday citizens, to me personally. How does it affect me in my everyday life, right? CIR has covered the surveillance technologies for a while now, and we've been focusing specifically on police surveillance and specific technologies that police use every day that collect information, about your community, about you on a regular basis that you may not know about. And one of the common, responses when you talk about surveillance like that is people say, nothing to hide, nothing to fear, right? I didn't do anything wrong, I'm not a criminal, so what do I care if the government and police rifle through some of my emails? If it helps catch a criminal or a terrorist, then that's fine, right? But behind all of that, I think, is that notion that we still don't know all of the specifics sometimes of what some of these technologies entail and what exactly they do. So we wanted to work against that. We wanted to figure out a way that we could really engage with people and give them that information and see what they thought, if they knew specifically what kinds of technologies were used by police in Oakland, California, and what kinds of data those tools collected. So we got a van. This is the mobile arts platform. The man in the van is Chris Chijari. He's a social practice artist in Oakland. He and his artistic partner, Peter, they ran the mobile arts platform for several years, and they outfit it for different public engagements. And for this particular engagement, we made it into a roving newsroom. Now, we literally drove this van across Oakland to have conversations with people and residents in Oakland about the specific types of technologies that police use, as I just mentioned. So this was our tool to have that direct conversation, to actually open up that process, to take some of the reporting and the information that we'd uncovered and get it to people directly and talk with folks about it, right? So I met Chris at the California College of the Arts in an event we did called Tech Raking in 2014, and we hit it off about our respective philosophies toward community engagement, Chris on the art side and me on the journalism side, and we wanted to do a project together. We started talking about what could we do. Chris was invited to participate in an exhibit at the Oakland Museum called Who is Oakland? And we started jamming. We said, what can we do together? So I told him about all the reporting we've been doing in Oakland about surveillance technology, and a particular system called the Domain Awareness Center that the city council wanted to expand to a citywide surveillance center. It caused a lot of protests. Some activists found out about it, and they eventually fought against it, and the city council voted to scale it back about a year later. So there was all this movement in Oakland around this particular surveillance system, and we wanted to take it a step further and get out into the community and talk a little bit more about some of the other specific tools that police were using. So we did this, we designed this kind of complex but good, fun interaction, we thought. We had a screen printing station on the front of the van, and we had designed this cool logo that is a ripoff of the community neighborhood watch logo. There's a little camera in the corner. And we came up with this prompt. What we really wanted to inspire was just to get people to get creative with it, right? So we just had this prompt, surveillance is. On the other side of that piece of paper is a quiz. That quiz had 5 questions that each contained a fact about a different type of technology used by police in Oakland that we would give people at the start of the interaction so they could learn about, they could actually learn about the technology, and then we'd ask them to fill out what surveillance was to them after we had a conversation with them about it. So we got all kinds of different responses to that simple prompt. I was a little skeptical at first. I didn't know how wide-ranging we'd get in terms of how people would respond to a simple prompt like this, but as you can see, they went all over the map, from family safety to a cover-up in place because of community fear. Some people even wrote us nice notes. It really was, the variety got to the complexity of the debate, right? There's people on all sides, and helped really illuminate some of those, that complexity. So we took those responses that we gathered driving this van around Oakland, and we put them in the museum. This was our publishing platform. Chris created this wooden structure. It's a representation of the Domain Awareness Center. And with each monitor, we had a different input that displayed everything from a slideshow of those photos that you saw to video interviews that we conducted in the van. There was also a little camera in the van that we could record interviews with people's consent. I filed for CCTV footage from downtown Oakland cameras, so it's actual CCTV footage from downtown, which was just about a couple blocks away from the museum. There was footage from a city council meeting where people showed up to literally speak against the Domain Awareness Center for hours one night that you could engage with. And on the far right side, you can see there was an information table where we printed out stories that we'd reported about technology. We had facts, little sheets of facts that you could take. So there was really like a huge learning opportunity that you could really experience in a variety of different ways, not only through our reporting, but through the voices of Oakland neighbors. There was also this beautiful map of Oakland in the back that you can see there, where we had little slips of the paper that you could fill out the prompt surveillance is and put it on the map. So there's also an interactive component as well. And we collected probably, I think, about 800 of those in the museum and about 120 or more actual interactions where people filled out the screen printed version of the prompt. One of the coolest things too is that we had this van. It was cool. It was a gimmick. It's a sweet van. People would come over just to talk about the van because it just looked interesting. So we had a gimmick, right? And that was part of what made the project successful when we went out into the community, was that we just had this weird attraction, that people were curious about. But we didn't need the van. We actually showed up and worked with some groups and went to a couple community events around Oakland. This was at the YMCA Healthy Kids Day by Lake Merritt, which is near downtown. And we just had the screen print and called people over to the table and had the same conversation. It was just all geared around this interaction that we were trying to design. And we wanted to scale it in a way that we could be nimble, that we could, we didn't need the van. If we wanted to take it to a different place, we could. We ended the project, so the project ran for 3 months in the exhibit at the Oakland Museum, and then a couple months later, we partnered with the Great Wall of Oakland, which, as you can see, is a gigantic wall in downtown, and they project films and all kinds of video projections during First Friday, which is an art night on Friday nights in Oakland, and they invited us to project some of what we found at Eyes on Oakland. So we projected the videos and some of the photos, and during the court, there was a huge crowd that comes downtown during this Friday night event. So that was a big way to really redistribute some of the information that we'd uncovered and some of the responses that we've gotten from people of Oakland and get it back out into the community. And that was actually part of the key thing is, we were discovering all of this, all of these insights, and we really wanted a way to think about how do we get them back out into the community, right? How do we use them to inspire more conversation, to inspire more dialogue about it, to just get people to think about surveillance. That's this invisible force that you don't really see, and it doesn't really cross your mind a lot. So we learned a lot from this project. If I could do it over, I would do a lot of things differently, but it was an experiment, and here's a little bit about what we actually came out with. One, just showing up. I think the motto is simple, but show up is something that I just like to abide by. I think I credit Joaquin for actually saying this at some point. I don't know what the context was, but it's really stuck with me, and I think that was at the heart of what made Eyes on Oakland unique is that we really just showed up around Oakland and talked to people. We're in communities that we wouldn't have been in otherwise. It's important to also be in places that you're invited and are welcome to. Don't just show up unannounced and be like, hey, you want to talk? But I think that in itself is something powerful that journalists can learn from. Journalists we need to get outside of our comfort zones a lot of times, frankly. We need to get outside of our Rolodexes and invite serendipity and chance into our process to make connections that we wouldn't have made, to build relationships that we wouldn't have built before, and invite different voices into our reporting that we may not have had. And that was what we did with Eyes on Oakland. 2 is we really wanted it to be an inclusive project, right? Oakland, as you just heard, is a very diverse city. And there's a lot of different communities that we wanted to engage. There's a huge Chinese population, Spanish-speaking population, Korean. So all of those different communities take a lot of work to be able to, one, build relationships to where, like I said, you can feel welcome, and 2, that you're able to have that conversation effectively, right? So we weren't able to have the time or the resources to get some of the materials translated, and we could have built more of those community connections to help get, really be more inclusive with the project. 3rd is, finding community partners is really key. Like I just said, if we really wanted to be inclusive, like having the people that already have the connections and building those relationships and building that trust is a crucial part of that process, and I can't emphasize that part enough. Even at the events that we showed up at, we had to, work with the organizers and actually, get their permission and sign up for the event, things like that. 4, we were so ambitious. If you'd seen the idea board for this project, like when we were first starting out, it was ridiculous. And even then, it was a lot of stuff going on. But we were able to pare it down, and we learned from the process as we even got into the field. We started, taking things away because it was just too much, right? So, we dreamed big, but then we kind of worked out what we could do and what people responded to, frankly, because we had all this stuff on the van. We had like a video booth. We had like an audio booth. We had this other thing that you could do. And it was just too much, right? People just weren't responding. So we used those engagements to help pare down what we were trying to do and figured out what worked the best. And 5, these long-term relationships, are really key for stuff like this. One thing that we didn't do that I wish we had done, and it was for a reason, was collect contact information from people. We were doing a project on surveillance. I was like, we're not going to get email addresses, right? We're not going to do that. This whole thing is about, data collection, right? But people would have done it because people were really into it when we had the conversation. And it would have allowed us to follow up with people over time, because this was a story, the surveillance story in Oakland was one that was evolving. Oakland just formed one of the country's first citizen privacy commissions that is going to help govern and set policies for surveillance technology. So that was all happening while we were doing this project, and having a way to connect with people in the long term would have been really great, to just build those relationships over time and get people really involved in that process. And I'll end with that. I mean, the really at the heart of social practice art and CIR's community engagement effort are these relationships. It's not enough just to, I believe, it's not enough just to tell a powerful story and an important story, but that we need to put in the work to build these relationships, to build the trust, and empower people with that information in ways that they can make a more informed decision and actually make a change. If we want that impact, then we need to take the time and prioritize the engagement and empowering people to actually make a difference. So thanks for your time. Thanks, everybody, for this great event.